On the point today, China and India face several bilateral challenges, from a border dispute high in the Himalayas to whether they'll cooperate over 5G technology. Yet at a high-level mechanism on cultural and people-to-people exchanges, which is now underway in Beijing, the focus is more on the positive than the negative, namely how to bring together more Chinese and Indians in a wide range of humanizing activities for the betterment of each society. To what degree can this forum strengthen relations between the two most populous countries, and how is the bilateral relationship being complicated by fresh crises, such as India's new move in Kashmir and the Sino-US trade war? Joining me for the discussion from New Delhi, Srikanth Kondapalli, a professor of Chinese studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, and here in the Beijing studio, Professor Wenping, a senior research fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to you both. Now, this will be the second forum of the high-level mechanism on cultural and people-to-people exchanges. Professor He here in Beijing, let me begin with you. What progress has been made since the first forum, which was held late last year?
Well, we all know that China and India, we are both the oldest civilization, not only in Asia and also in the whole of the world. So there is a lot of communication and the contacts between the Chinese people and the Indian people. So actually, ever since the first forum, and then there are lots of dialogue has been going on, and lots of academic cooperation between Indian think tank and the Chinese think tank also has been going on. They have put forward this joint research, and not only the bilateral, this kind of exchange, and also we have been joining also closely in those multilateral those platforms. For example, in the BRICS platform. Both China and India are the member of the BRICS, this platform. So we have called the BRICS Think Tank Forum. So every year when moving around between the different those member countries, sometimes in India, sometimes in China, Beijing, sometimes in Brazil. So whenever this BRICS summit will be taking place normally before or after, there will be the BRICS, the think tanks forum. So that offers a lot of chances for bilateral this kind of talk and exchange. And plus, nowadays, a lot of tourists also come to the India. And of course, we haven't seen too much like Indian friends come to China being the tourists, because frankly speaking, the visa issue is not that easy. Like myself, I traveled to India twice. Every time I spend a lot of time, very difficult for acquiring the visa. So I think even though there are lots of contacts going on, but still have a lot of potential to develop.
Professor Kondapalli, the cultural and people-to-people exchanges are certainly important, but they are considered the softer aspect of a bilateral relationship. With more exchanges in that regard, how will bilateral relations benefit from more frequent exchanges?
Well, I think after the first informal summit meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi in Wuhan in April 2018, they both decided to have this mechanism of people-to-people exchange and cultural contacts enhancement. Since then, there has been some effort, and Mr. Wang Yi visited Delhi in December last year, and they concluded those 10 pillar agreements in which they intend to enhance the cultural aspect of the soft power aspect of the bilateral relations. I think this will provide some cushion for the bilateral relations, and I think it is good in intent to enhance, say, for example, tourism, the youth exchanges, think tank and media forum, the museum management, and the yoga, and a host of other issues like Chinese language teachers to be recruited in Indian universities to teach Chinese language, and so on and so forth. So I think it is in good intent to suggest for a long-term impact on the bilateral relations. I think they succeeded in a way to that extent.
There seems to be a lot of good momentum in the bilateral relationships currently, but the bilateral relationship has also been tested by many challenges and withstood many difficulties over the years. I want to jump right in and talk about what's happening in Kashmir. The Indian government has decided to strip the status of autonomy in Kashmir, infuriating its neighbor Pakistan. Ms. He here in our Beijing studio. Do you think that might also complicate its border dispute and its overall relations with China?
Of course, this was a very unfortunate issue because the Kashmir has been divided into three. Actually, there are Indian-controlled Kashmir, and also Pakistan-controlled Kashmir, and also part of the territory has been, belong to China. So this is quite clear. This is, disputed territory issue. But with this decision given by the Indian government, it seems now there is a unilateral way to change the status quo. So this is not acceptable, both from the Pakistan and from the China side. I think this will, of course, put the fuel on the fire. So it's not good and helpful for give the good relation building between those China, the India, and the China, and the India and Pakistan.
Professor Kondapalli, was China a decision-making factor in that process?
Well, I just wanted to say that in 1947, when India became independent, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir signed an instrument of accession to join Indian Union. And since then, there was a special status given to Jammu and Kashmir. Now, the Indian Constitution mentions about Jammu and Kashmir as an integral part of India. Neither the Pakistani Constitution nor the Chinese Constitution mentions about Jammu and Kashmir as part of their territories. To that extent, I think, since both China and Pakistan and India, they do mention about the United Nations Charter, they do mention about non-interference policy, they do mention about the internal matters of the countries to be managed by that country. I think it is to be fair to say that India acted on its own in relation to the constitutional provisions it has inherited from 1947. To that extent, I do not think it disturbs anybody. It, of course, tries to reorganize the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, and the recent announcement by the Parliament is to reorganize and create two new union territories with centrally administered ones. And of course, there is also the promise of having democracy in Jammu and Kashmir and in Ladakh union territory. To that extent, I think this should be fair for any observer in terms of the constitutional provisions and the parliamentary resolution.
That certainly will be a point of contention. We have just about time to talk about a potential area of cooperation, and that's 5G. In the next few months, India is expected to hold trials for installing a next-generation 5G cellular network. Professor Kondapalli, would you say that India will be torn between wanting to follow in the footsteps of the United States, which has warned against working with Chinese companies such as Huawei for national security reasons, and its own development needs for 5G? Is India in a position of conflict there?
Your assessment is fair enough because the many telecom companies in India, like the Bharati Airtel or Vodafone or the Reliance company Jio, they have taken different positions. Bharati Airtel had some Huawei linkages, while Vodafone is also trying some. On the other hand, Reliance company's Jio is tying up with Samsung of South Korea in terms of putting up the 5G networks and so on. So this is one which has divided the commercial lobbies within India. There is also the view from the Home Ministry, the Interior Ministry, on the security considerations of 5G spectrum, especially in the border areas So a possible way out is a middle path approach of non-serious network instruments to be procured from Huawei or any other telecom company which can produce these at cheaper rates, and on the other hand, more serious networking sites to be developed by India.
Professor He, do you expect the two sides to find common ground in 5G development?
Well, I wish, even though there is, of course, a lot of difficulties. But we have witnessed with great pressure, that is the Huawei, even though under the heavy pressure coming from the United States, but Huawei still given a very brilliant this kind of achievements in the 2018 and even in the first half of this year. So which means this 5G technology. So this is the, this is to the wish of the people. People want to enjoy, want to embrace the very modern and the very, advanced, this new technology that will bring the, the beneficial things for the people. So I think in the India, even though now that we are facing some difficulties, but at the end of the day, I think Indian people, this Indian, the Chinese are the most populous, the country. So people deserve to enjoy the better life in the future.
All right, that's all the time we have on today's program. Professor Srikanth Kondapalli of Jawaharlal Nehru University and He Wenping from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, thank you so much for your insight. And that's all for this edition of The Point. Join me again tomorrow for the second installment of Hong Kong Specials. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the CGTN app to watch our show on your mobile devices or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thank you for watching. You've got The Point.